Welcome to One in Rome, a detailed history of the Roman Republic and Empire. This is Jada Norford, Clara Drummond, Sarah Palm, and Emmeline Michael, here to explain the ins and outs of this ancient and powerful place.
The Roman Republic and Empire spanned a long period of time, between 1000 BCE when the first Roman settlement was established and 476 CE when Rome was considered to have fallen. Before we talk about that, let's give some historical context to this time period.
Rome thrived during the period known as the Classical Empires, such as the Qin and Han in China and the Maurya and then Gupta in India. The Greeks and the Achaemenid Persians were building empires early in this period, and the Hellenistic Age, or spread of Greek culture, persisted throughout these eras in places around the world. This is displayed on the map shown. Notice the Roman Empire in blue, Persian Empire in purple, and the Han Empire in yellow.
But the Romans were one of the largest and most important empires during this period. Part of Rome's great success was its location. Rome was located in the center of Italy in an easily defendable area surrounded by the Tiber River on one side and a double ring of hills on the other. There were secure passes into and out of the city through the Apennines and the Alps that made for safe passage for armies and merchants. The climate allowed for a long growing season and a wide variety of crops. Rome was surrounded by resources, including plentiful timber and an iron-rich region of Etruria to the northwest.
Rome was supposedly founded in this area in 753 BCE by Romulus, a boy who was found floating on the Tiber River and raised by a wolf, but it may have been occupied over 200 years earlier.
Agriculture was the primary economic activity in early Rome. As such, land was the basis of wealth. The families with the most land, who stood above the majority of the self-sufficient Roman farmers, were members of the Senate or Council of Elders. Rome had 7 kings from 753 to 507 BCE. But the last, Tarquinius Superbus, was denounced by Brutus the Liberator and the senators to be a tyrant in 507 BCE. He was overthrown and the Roman Republic was put into place.
Power in the Republic was technically designated to a group of elected officials called the Assembly. But this group was skewed in that the wealthy had more power. In addition, 2 annually elected consuls were given supreme powers amongst this group. Power in Rome, however, really lay in the Senate, which increasingly made more policy decisions and became self-perpetuating. The Roman Republic at its heart was an oligarchy, but the idea of republicanism that it established would later significantly impact intellectuals such as Niccolò Machiavelli in the Renaissance and thinkers in the Enlightenment, so it was extremely important.
Because the majority of the population, the lower class or plebeians of Rome, disliked being underrepresented in their government, an issue arose known as the conflict of orders. The elites, or patricians, were forced to give in to this majority in 2 ways. First, the Senate established the 12 Tables, a set of laws that gave plebeians checks on patricians. Then, new officials were created from the lower classes called tribunes. They could veto unjust actions of the assembly.
Socially, Rome was characterized by 2 important types of relationships. Because Romans valued the family above all else, familial relationships came first and were vital. As a patriarchal society, the oldest male served as the head of the family and was known as the paterfamilias. Secondly, the patron-client relationship was prevalent in Rome, in which individuals of different classes were bound by complex ties. Clients sought the protection of a patron, and the client was expected to follow the patron into battle and work on their land in return. Roman inequality became an accepted system that worked efficiently for the benefit of most parties involved.
Under Roman law, women were seen as similar to children, though they had more freedom than their Greek counterparts. According to Cantarella, unlike the Greeks, the Romans did not believe that women should be shut up in a special part of the house or that they should be forbidden to dine with men or go out in the street. As for religion, the Romans believed in noumena, or invisible forces. They were polytheistic and struggled to maintain pax decorum, or the peace of the gods. These gods were influenced by Greek gods.
During the time of the Roman Republic, the areas Rome possessed expanded exponentially. This was primarily done through the Roman army, which was notably fierce and disciplined. First, Rome expanded to encompass the entirety of present-day Italy. Unlike the Greeks, Romans were willing to grant privileges like citizenship to the peoples they conquered. However, they also demanded armies.
The Romans fought 3 extremely important wars known as the Punic Wars from 264 to 202 BCE. The Romans emerged victorious, establishing themselves as a great power and acquiring Spain, Sicily, and Sardinia. Continuing to gain territory, Rome ended up conquering many Hellenistic territories as well as land in Europe. Rome's rapid growth is best summed up by these words attributed to Julius Caesar: I came, I saw, I conquered.
The Romans did not know how to govern their vast new territories. Though local governors were put into place, they soon proved corrupt. In addition, the wealth brought in from new territory created a widening gap between Rome's rich and poor. Investors had taken over Roman farms while they were fighting in wars, and they farmed in hopes to create large profits, thereby displacing small and self-sufficient peasant farmers. The poor became poorer and began to support the repeated election of leaders at the promise of change.
From 88 to 31 BCE, 6 tyrannous leaders reigned over Rome, including Julius Caesar himself. These men had more troops than did the Roman army, and the result was civil war. Julius Caesar created a group called the Triumvirate, composed of himself and 2 other dictators, Pompey and Marcus Crassus, and they ruled as dictators until Caesar was stabbed in 44 BCE. The conflict culminated in 31 BCE when Octavian, also known as Augustus, eliminated his rivals and established the Roman Principate. Although he declared himself princeps and not emperor, this was his way of disguising a military dictatorship. The Roman Republic had ended.
Augustus accomplished several objectives during his rule. He gained control of Egypt as well as parts of the Middle East and Central Europe. By this time, Rome had conquered most of its land, as displayed in the map shown. Augustus also created bureaucracy from a well-to-do class of Italian merchants known as equites.
During the Roman Principate or Empire, most laws stemmed from the emperor. Roman law during this time emphasized the rights of citizens to their property. Roman law is the basis of the current U.S. legal system.
The Roman Empire was considered to be an urban empire for the first 3 centuries CE. It was administered through a network of towns and cities, and the urban population benefited the most, which was about 20% of the population.
In Rome, the wealthy upper classes lived in elegant homes centered around an atrium, a rectangular courtyard open to the sky to let in sunlight and rainwater for washing and drinking. Surrounding this atrium were a large dining room for dinner and drinking parties, an interior garden, a kitchen, and sometimes a private bath. Most aristocrats also owned a number of villas in the Italian countryside to which the family could retreat to escape the pressures of city life. The poor lived in crowded slums that were dark and damp, with few furnishings, and were susceptible to fires. They spent the majority of the day outdoors, working, shopping, eating, and socializing. The rural people had to fend for themselves in dealing with bandits, wild animals, and other hazards. This shows the contrasting social classes and their vast differences.
Some urban people got rich off of manufacture and trade, which was greatly enhanced by the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. The Pax Romana connoted the stability and prosperity that the Roman rule brought to the empire in the first 2 centuries CE. In terms of trade, the Romans exported glass, metalwork, pottery, and other manufactured goods throughout the empire, as well as to China and India in exchange for luxury goods like silk and spices. Thus, the Pax Romana facilitated early trade on the Silk Road. Roman armies stationed on the frontiers were a large market that promoted the prosperity of border provinces.
Romanization was the process by which the Latin language and Roman culture became dominant in the western provinces during this period of peace. Modern Portuguese, Spanish, French, Italian, and Romanian stem from Latin and trace back to this important period. The Roman government did not force Romanization. However, there were many advantages to speaking Latin and wearing a toga because of the success so many conquered peoples had incentive to Romanize.
The empire eventually granted Roman citizenship to the peoples living outside Italy, men who completed a 26-year term of service, as rewards for good service, and in 212 CE to all free adult male inhabitants. As a result, Rome was no longer centered exclusively in Italy. It became a group of peoples hailing from across vast territories.
During this period of Pax Romana came a time of great historical significance. Judea came under the rule of Rome in 6 CE, and over the next half-century, Roman governors were insensitive to the Jewish belief in one God, as it opposed Roman beliefs.
Jesus was a Jewish carpenter from Galilee who was executed as a revolutionary leader by the Romans, specifically a Roman governor called Pontius Pilate. A group of Jesus' followers, called apostles, believed him to be the Messiah of the Jewish faith. They worshipped him as such and thus began Christianity.
The Pax Romana is perhaps best exemplified by the travels of Paul, one of Jesus' followers. With a Greek background and Roman citizenship, in addition to the safety of travel in Rome, Paul traveled across the empire to create Christian converts. For example, in Romans 1:14, Paul states on spreading his faith, "I'm obligated both to Greeks and non-Greeks, both to wise and the foolish. That is why I'm so eager to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome."
For more than 2 centuries, the new faith grew slowly but steadily. Many converts received respect not accorded to them in the larger society and obtained positions of responsibility, so marginalized people were more likely to be converts. However, early Christians were persecuted by Roman officials who regarded their refusal to worship the emperor as a sign of disloyalty.
Technology was crucial to the Roman Empire. As the Roman Empire expanded and new cities were being built, technologies such as the aqueduct became vital in the sustaining of major cities. An aqueduct is a conduit, either elevated or underground, that uses gravity to move water from a source to a location in need of fresh water. The building of aqueducts was a major part of Roman expansion and transformations throughout the empire. The Romans also utilized arches and concrete, allowing them to create domes and structures like the Colosseum, a symbol of intellectual growth in the empire.
Although the Romans prospered for a great deal of time, they did have several problems and weaknesses. Between the years 235 and 285 CE, the period known as the Third Century Crisis created many issues within the Roman Empire. Within this period, military, political, and economic turmoil beset the Roman Empire. Concerns stemmed from being unable to defend vast borders, as well as frequent changes of rulers, civil wars, and eventual decentralization. Inflation led to the switch from coinage to a barter economy.
Around the end of this period, a man named Diocletian arrived and began to help settle and improve the empire. Diocletian came from Eastern Europe and attained power in 284 CE. He stopped inflation and helped the economy by placing people in necessary jobs throughout the empire, and he also divided it into 2 parts, Eastern and Western. Diocletian resigned in 305 CE and was soon replaced by Emperor Constantine. Constantine ruled from 312 CE to 337 CE. Among his many achievements was the reunification of the Roman Empire, as well as ending Christian persecution with the Edict of Milan and establishing Christianity as the main religion in the Roman Empire. After unifying the empire, he moved the capital to Byzantium, which he renamed Constantinople.
The fall of the Roman Empire as we know it occurred in 476 CE. This is when the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, abdicated his throne. While the Eastern Roman Empire transformed into the Byzantine Empire and thrived, the Western Roman Empire was increasingly invaded by Germanic peoples. This map provides a rough idea of the Eastern versus Western Roman empires.
Although the Byzantine Empire continued to develop, our history of Rome ends here. Thanks for listening.